Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves.
Okay. Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Kaylani, and this is my co-host, James.
Ha ha. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. Today we kind of have, I'm going to weave in some topics, and we're going to weave in and out really of the conversation around mental health, treatment options, and some hot takes.
Nice.
Yes. So recently I saw a post and it was going over the kind of pop psychology version of what mental health is, like the perspective of mental health, and then kind of an actual psychology thought.
Nice.
And I wanted us to go over it. But part of me was also thinking about how maybe you might have started in the beginning of this endeavor on the podcast, maybe with some of the pop psychology thoughts. And
me?
Yeah. And I wonder if there's been change within that for you too in the last year as we talk over them. And maybe not, maybe not. But sometimes I think when we've talked about understanding depression and people who are taking those steps, it's hard to understand that kind of a low.
I know that I've learned just a universe of information from this whole thing. I couldn't tell you what. I would have to sit and think about it. But, I think that we both started in the same kind of the same kind of mindset of just curiosity and everything that, I don't know. I my frame of mind has stayed the same. If that makes any sense. But yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of information that I've learned from you and then some of our guests and things. Yeah. But okay, I have a question though. A very basic question.
Okay.
What is the difference between psychology and therapy? Or a difference between a psychologist and a therapist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A psychologist has a PhD in psychology.
Okay.
And they can essentially do all of the same therapy that a therapist does, or a counselor. A therapist and a counselor can be interchangeable. But they might also be able to do assessments. They might also be able to teach as a professor at a university.
Okay.
There are more options. They can do research, things like that, and they would be able to maybe diagnose certain things diagnosing autism requires a special training and things like that. So they might be able to do more assessments and diagnosis. But a lot of still working one-on-one with people and having that therapeutic relationship, that's still the same and looks essentially the same. And then there's psychiatrists, and those are people who have medical degrees and can prescribe medication for people who have mental health conditions and are specialized in a medical sense in that way, but they went to medical school.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for explaining that. Because I wondered that. When I went to the mental health facility a couple years ago, I met with a psychologist, a counselor, and a whole bunch of other different, labels. And with the psychologist, I was like, oh, she must be specialized in prescribing medication. That's the only thing that I noticed from my layman perspective,
Yeah, and they might have more interaction with the psychiatrist and be able to talk a little bit more about the biology of medications and how they metabolize, or this is what I think for that person. But essentially that's kind of the breakdown. And within therapists and counselors, there's people who have marriage and family therapy degrees. There's people who have counseling psychology degrees or social work degrees. So, there's a lot of different types of therapists. I'm my own flavor, and I think that the right clients kind of gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
And I think finding someone who's the right fit is really important. We've talked a little bit about that, but I've been having a lot more people, even just friends and family, reaching out and wanting more information when it comes to how they start looking for services. And maybe that's something we can touch on now.
Yeah.
I think it can feel really daunting and to not know where to start or where to begin. You could start by talking to some people that you trust and see if maybe they've heard of someone who's good. If you're wanting to see somebody locally, just because it's nice to kind of have them be vetted in some way.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to do telehealth versus in-person, those are questions to ask yourself. So if you're doing telehealth therapy, you can really see a therapist that's anywhere within your state or anyone who is licensed in your state, even if they don't reside there. So that could mean that you have a lot more flexibility and options. Like perhaps if you were looking for someone who's really specialized in some type of therapy, you might have more options when you cast that wider net. But a lot of people prefer in-person. And so I would say looking into Psychology Today is one directory. Therapy Den is another one. And it doesn't even have everyone in your area, every therapist or counselor in your area, but it has quite a few of them. And so it's basically like online dating for a counselor. And you can like refine the search to say, I want someone who takes this insurance, who, you know, works with women, who deals with this area, et cetera, et cetera. And then it can show you who is taking new clients or has a wait list. And if there's someone who has a wait list, I wouldn't let that discourage you. Just hop on the wait list. And if it's someone that you really clicked with in the free phone consultation, which most counselors and therapists offer, and that's a real way for you to gauge whether or not that's someone that you think you could trust, if you like their vibe, if that's someone that you think you could work with.
Another question.
Yeah.
That just organically popped up because you said the word wait list. So I've always had confusion with what a wait list actually is. And I know that like friends of mine have also, because it sounds so like daunting, like, oh, you're
forever.
Yeah, I'm going to be like, does that mean that if a client like just cancels or is no longer a client, then you get bumped forward in the line? Or how does the wait list work?
Yeah, that could be. I mean, so when I look at my wait list, I think about, you know, with the beginning with a new client, you're wanting to get more frequent sessions because you're building that therapeutic relationship. So do I have time in my schedule to add someone in right now, or do I need to wait a while? And there's also like seasons when it's busier or slower too. Yeah. And so right now my wait list is probably until February because of the holidays and taking time off.
Okay.
And that means for new clients, that is the soonest I would be able to get a first appointment scheduled. However, also if there's a cancellation and I kind of have an idea of when your availability is, there's a high likelihood that you might be able to get an appointment if someone isn't available and cancels. And there's a lot of cancellations this time of year because of the holidays and getting sick and, you know, things that come up. So yeah, actually today there was someone who I think was originally supposed to have an appointment in mid to end January, but there was a cancellation, so I was able to get them in. So yeah, I think that it is still worth a shot, especially if you felt that connection with that counselor, whether it's through you know, the posts that they do or in that 15-minute free phone consultation that you had with them.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot.
That was a good question.
Yeah, a lot of clarity. Thank you. I hope that answers questions, that the FAQs that other people might have. Yeah.
I would say I think there's a lot of fears people might have when starting therapy, especially if I've worked with a lot of people who've either had a negative previous experience with a therapist or who have just, you know, bottled things up so tightly that they are just really afraid, honestly, of what might happen if they were in a space to be honest enough and vulnerable enough. Like if I twist open the cap, is it going to explode? Yeah.
In my experience, every time I've sought out therapy, my thing was that I wanted to meet with them immediately and just like, and a lot of times they'll be like, okay, well, we have something like 6 weeks from now. I'm like, what? I can't wait. You know, I'm in a crisis, you know, and I know that's really impossible because we, speaking of the word crisis, we are, and that might segue right into our topic.
Yes.
That we are in a mental health crisis. So then like the supply and demand of counselors, the supply is so low and the demand is so high. That's why,
Yeah.
you have a wait list. I'm sure a lot of your colleagues have wait lists.
Yeah,
And-
a lot of my colleagues do have a wait list, and that's exactly right. I mean, mental health services, especially since COVID, have risen by like 50%. People
Wow.
seeking out services, and that doesn't surprise me. I know I've mentioned it like quite frequently, but the National Institute of Health has said that we are in a loneliness an isolation epidemic and a crisis, and that this not only affects our mental health, but insufficient connection with others can also include our risk of heart disease by actually 29%, and a 32% increase for the risk of stroke, a 50% increase for the risk of developing dementia in older adults. And I've seen that with people that I love and with some people that are in my family, how devastating that lack of social connection has made their life in physical ways, or with dementia, with still this mental element of not fully being able to interact with the world the way that you want to. And so if we're thinking about longevity in our health, we should most definitely be thinking about mental health and therapy as a means for preventative medicine, really.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't had a stroke.
You're surprised you haven't had a stroke because
Yeah.
you've based on that statistic of being isolated?
Yeah. Just all the stress that I've had. And here's a hot take, though, that I was going to share. This is me shooting from the hip. I thought of it on my drive over here. And that is, I think that, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that anxiety exists from wanting more, and joy exists from being content with what you have. So, that's a black and white statement, but I really think that might be true. That anxiety only exists from wanting more. What do you think of that? I mean,
Wanting more. I think it can exist in that space. I think there's anxiety, a lot of anxiety though, that's about what if something bad happens too.
Oh, yeah.
So there's different types of anxiety. And I think that's maybe a more common angle with anxiety. What I would say is anxiety exists in the past of either overthinking something that you regret or feel shameful about and letting that haunt you, or it exists in the future in the sense of, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? And being joyful it's a requirement that requires presence, that requires being fully in the moment. And I think there's a vulnerability to letting in joy. Sometimes our defenses might include, honestly, staying in an Eeyore state and being miserable, because even the thought of being joyful means that it is temporary. And then it's more devastating when we leave that joyful place. And so I think that sometimes there's like our default mode as humans might get stuck.
Yeah, I like that you used Eeyore mode. Is that a technical term?
We use that in therapy, Eeyore mode. Dang, they're in level 5 Eeyore mode. I'm just kidding.
You know, it's funny. I identify with Tigger way more, and like Eeyore to me.
You are a Tigger. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
But so Eeyore to me is just like, he's my least favorite character. You know, hey Pooh. That was a good impression.
That was good. I know I haven't rewatched any Winnie the Pooh actually in a while, and maybe I should. It's interesting. I think that there's a place for Eeyore. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that Tigger might also, if I'm pathologizing him, he might also be so busy that he doesn't allow space for like processing hard things.
Yeah, no,
He bounces on through it.
There's definitely and then there's Christopher Robin, who's the secure attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
and then Pooh, I don't know what he is.
I don't know what he is either.
He's just like friend zone, man. And then Piglet too. Yeah. There's like different personalities, but I'm definitely more Tigger. And then I identify with all the party personalities in groups, like Michelangelo from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting. It's always, bringing in the hype. I think that makes sense to me, but there's also, in the quiet times, it might even if you can be that peppy Tigger character, I don't know that includes the quiet moments.
Yeah, no, I definitely have down moments, but just most consistently I've been Tigger, but like depressed Tigger.
Depressed Tigger.
Yeah. Like I bet Tigger when he's all by himself, because he's an extrovert, he's a raging extrovert, you know, and so am I.
Okay.
So we need people, and when we're around people, we're bouncing off the walls. We're happy, you know.
So the task right now is maybe being comfortable with being alone and being comfortable within yourself.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of time to like become comfortable being alone, and so I'm like, okay, I got that out of my system. Let's surround myself with people now. So then every time there is like some like a weekend or something where I'm just gonna be alone, I'm like dreading it, you know. But so yeah, but that just means that I'm like way more intentional on cultivating consistent relationships, you know.
Yeah. I think it does feel vulnerable when it's not as baked into our society, and there's kind of this idea that we should be able to do it all on our own, do everything alone. We have such an independent society. So that actually brings up a good point. And there's just certain beliefs that I think can be unhealthy. So one of them is, you know, having needs and needing people and being attached to people is all codependency and it's bad. There's some people who believe that, you know, relying on others is negative. And I think sometimes that's a covert belief of just like, oh, I think that others should rely on others. I think it's great for other people to need other people, but might not internally then be someone who's likely to ask for help or who can be vulnerable enough to invite that in. And again, like even as the NIH is saying, like we are meant to be connected to other people. That's how we are wired, and that's how we stay healthy. That's normal, and to have those attachments and those needs. Certainly, what I promote is that we can try and show up the best way that we can for other people, so that we can be responsible for the healthy attachments that we're forming, and to be aware of when you need to have a boundary. But that shouldn't mean that we cut everyone off.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think I at one point believed that, you know, you shouldn't rely on other people, and like I was so anti people pleasing, but then now I'm like, no, people need people. Yeah.
Some other things that I think we should be aware of too when it comes to having an open perspective around mental health is making sure that, you know, every human has intrusive thoughts, but we shouldn't just kind of take that for what it is. We should try to be curious about them, because our thoughts aren't facts and they don't really reflect our truest desires and values. They're often clouded by some of our protective factors that come into play, and some of our anxiety that can actually be in opposition to our values and the things that we really want in life. So intrusive thoughts are not the same thing as intuition, and that can be really tricky. I remember at a point in my healing when I was much younger, almost being confused when I would feel, let's say, I'm just not feeling a spark with this person, so I'm going to go with this other person, and maybe getting confused and thinking that was intuition when really it was, maybe security and safety in a relationship doesn't feel like a wild roller coaster, like this unhealthy relationship, even though that feels familiar. That's not the same thing as intuition. That's like, my trauma is leading me. And that's where intrusive thoughts can be tricky, and that's where we should understand them and not just ignore them or live in that stuckness. There's a family member who I care about so deeply, and I think that that's a really hard concept for them to understand and kind of take on that perspective of this is the way I am. This is how it's always been. And it doesn't have to be that way when you have some more insight, which is what counseling and therapy can do. Also, another take that I want us to unpack is that trauma makes you stronger, and that everything is a trauma response. And I think that it's tricky. Like, do we overuse the word trauma? Do we how is it defined? I think that so often we're comparing our trauma to others too, either like they've never been through what I've been through, or an opposite take of like, well, what do I have to be worried about? My life isn't as bad as so-and-so's. I haven't been through this or that devastating thing. And that can really shame where we're at. But trauma is a devastating experience, and it increases the risk of not only physical illness, but mental health illness, and things like not having a healthy attachment to a parent or a caregiver, things like having a parent who you're estranged from, feeling unsafe in your home, feeling like you're constantly belittled and walking on eggshells. These are examples of some complex trauma, but that counts as trauma.
Yeah.
Not knowing where, like, it doesn't have to look as devastating as like Les Miserables. It doesn't have to be like, you're in rags and unable to get full meals every night, but there are still other levels of trauma that very much affect someone's mental health, their psyche, their perspective, their intrusive thoughts.
Yeah. I've learned to not minimize somebody's feelings, because all the humans are so complex, and there's all different types of things that will trigger someone based on their like upbringing, all kinds of stuff.
And what's difficult for one person might not be difficult for another. Like one area that was, I remember it being hard when I was little, but I've been flying alone on airplanes to visit my parents back and forth since I was 5 years old. So it's not a overwhelming thing for me to think of, but there at one point it was when I was little. And then I have some friends who, like, as an adult, the idea of flying alone still causes anxiety for them. Well, I had a very different life experience. That isn't the life experience that they gathered. And there are things that I know that they are far more capable at than I am. Yeah. So like the comparison of that, I think it's good to really check yourself if you notice that tendency to kind of want to feel as though, well, I can do this, so why can't this person, or why can't that person like make it through this hard thing I did? Well, you're not the golden child. You're not the standard. You're just a person.
Yeah. But on the other side of the coin, though, I think that there is a little bit of value. It depends on how you approach it. Because like if you are feeling anxiety about a certain experience that we're going to do together, and I'm not feeling anxiety, I might encourage you, like, hey, here's how I exist in this and find joy, but then to shame let's say we're going to fly together and you have anxiety, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the safest method of transportation, like, it's amazing, and that's different than like, but I don't know what I would say.
We want to have a compassionate response, not a shameful response, right? So a compassionate response in that would be like, hey, I know it can feel scary. This is what I do to feel better. Yeah. I'm here with you. I'm going to hold your hand if you need me to. Yeah.
There's only like a 25% chance we're going to die.
Maybe don't say that. And that's not true. We'll die
together.
Then that's not accurate.
Okay, sorry. That's what I would say.
Don't frighten our dear listeners who have a fear of flying.
It's what, I don't even know what the percentage is, but super low. Anyway, I digress.
So I mean, just wanting to extend maybe more compassion towards yourself and towards others this holiday season, especially when gathering with family and with friends. And then I want to help prepare us for next week's guest that we'll be interviewing, or I'll be interviewing. Jonathan Robinson. He is a therapist. He's written 15 books. He's been on Oprah and CNN talking about his pursuits of really listening to spiritual leaders and understanding more about their practices to maintain a sense of enlightenment. But his latest book that I've been reading and I'm excited about is called Ecstasy is Medicine, and it's about using MDMA to treat PTSD and how he has done that with clients. And so I'm really excited to learn from him. And I want to share some other facts around using MDMA as medicine to treat trauma. And a part of trauma are also aspects of anxiety and depression. So I think that it extends to other things as well. But currently through the FDA studies, it has been focused on PTSD, severe PTSD. So we're seeing some huge and beautiful benefits with people who are first responders and veterans who have severe PTSD and afterwards like are not on other medications and really feel more like themselves. And although this isn't a cure-all for everyone, it is an incredible tool for the people who have access to it. So phase 3 trials of MDMA, meaning that it is proven that it is effective, highly effective, and it has proven therapeutic benefit. So in phase 3 trials of MDMA, where people who had severe PTSD went through the MDMA protocol, 67% no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis, and another 33 or so percent had reduced symptoms that were still substantial. So we're still like, that's incredibly promising, especially in the field of mental health, where the traditional go-to for treating anxiety and depression is antidepressants or an SSRI, which hover around 33% effectiveness, which is barely above a placebo effect.
Yeah, that's insane. That's 2/3.
Yeah. So that's huge, and I think that our society is ready for some new methods to come to the table. So MDMA not only it reduces PTSD symptoms of being able to talk through traumatic events and not feeling kind of the body panic that comes along with it, but to actually process it and not let the amygdala be reactive. So MDMA kind of quiets that amygdala reaction and dumps a lot of serotonin in. So it's this like very compassionate and heart-opening medicine where you're able to kind of grasp therapeutic ideas so much faster and so much more concretely. So it's a really exciting therapy, especially when I think about, the veterans who have gone overseas and, are struggling. That breaks my heart. Having been in a relationship previously with someone who was a veteran, I feel like he would get a call, honestly, almost every year of someone that he knew who had died by suicide that year, someone he knew who he had been in service with. And that's heartbreaking, and we should be able to do better for our military personnel and for the people who are on the front lines. So I'm really excited to learn more from Jonathan Robinson. That interview is coming up, and personally wanting to learn more about how I can provide these therapies for my clients, because I view them as so important and such a beautiful ingredient to increase their healing, which is what I want. I just want to increase healing and love and compassion. That's feels like a mission in my life. Right, as someone who's a little bit newer to like learning about psychedelics, what is your take when you hear those statistics? When you think about,
I've heard from your experience, and then I've heard from another friend's experience, and it seems like 90% positive, and so that. But then, like I lived in like a culture and a mindset where and my whole life I was I listened in DARE. And so I always said no to drugs. But I'm so curious though. Like I want to experience it, but then I hate like the thought of my brain being like
the fried
altered.
egg in the pan. Do you remember that?
Yeah. This is your brain on drugs.
This is your brain.
Yeah.
This is your brain on drugs. Sizzle, sizzle.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just have. My brain is weird, though. I don't know, but
You're worried your brain wouldn't work right with the medicine?
No, I don't know. I just think that I have so much suppressed trauma that I like awakening all of it and going into that subconscious would be like going into the upside down, and
that's the thing about MDMA is that it doesn't feel scary. It feels safe. And that feels like a wild idea when maybe trauma, actually thinking about your trauma in this current state feels like the upside down.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Like my thought is that I want to reach a certain like point in life where because like at this very moment, I'm currently like in a mild traumatic season, and so if I would want to get to like a good place
Yeah.
first, and then be like, okay, now let's unpack everything, So
I mean, I think having enough capacity is a good thing to
Yeah.
think about. I think sometimes people might feel like, oh, I need to grow to a certain point before I'm ready for that. And it might be just an attempt to like push away something that they're scared or nervous about.
yeah,
So I think continuing, maybe thinking about it, like I said, more so as when will I have the capacity to have space for that? Not just the time, but the energy to process through it. And then that's a good question to ask yourself, because you can do a lot of things while you're still fearful. I've done a lot of things when I'm still feeling afraid.
yeah,
But leaning into being curious about what you can learn about it so that it really sheds that fear. Because I grew up with the same fears. I spent most of my life trying to be perfect and be a good girl and get good grades. So this isn't from a background, honestly, of experimenting with drugs. I just genuinely, after like learning and deep research and now personal experience with psychedelic medicines, would not classify them as a drug in the same way that we put everything else under that category.
yeah,
Because it provides immense therapeutic benefit. Some of them are plant medicines that have been used for thousands of years to the benefit of human psyche. And it's not detrimental and addictive in the same ways as things like heroin or cocaine or opioids,
Yeah.
where honestly, psychedelics, including ibogaine, is now legalized, I want to say in Kentucky, randomly, because of how effective it is for treating opioid use.
oh,
So this is really, and we need to, I don't know, I want to be a part of spreading this message and spreading this information, because I think there's a lot of things happening that the average person doesn't understand or know about, because we were so good at villainizing psychedelic medicine. And yeah, it takes time to peel back the layers. So I don't have any on me to like test out on you right now. I'm not trying to like jump the idea on
Yeah.
you. This is just like, yeah, that probably does sound wild, but also, what could you imagine what that state might feel like, or the idea of feeling a freedom from that heavy baggage?
Yeah.
Feeling free from the upside down.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah. And, again, because there's this high percentage of like mental health services are in high demand and there are wait lists, MDMA therapy is actually like much faster than normal talk therapy, adding that in. So it means that more people might be able to be helped, which is the goal. I'm just trying to work myself out of a job.
Should we become ecstasy drug dealers?
No, that's not my goal.
Okay.
I'm gonna be a medicine healer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I might be a drug dealer.
How did you do in chemistry?
What is chemistry?
I
I'm just kidding.
don't think this is for you.
I never took chemistry in high school. I never took chemistry at any level,
Oh.
but I've had chemistry
Oh my gosh.
with the ladies.
No.
No.
This is terrible. Eye roll in full effect.
It's actually a false. So,
Okay. So in this conversation of like just therapy, healing, and trying to normalize more about mental health, I of course have a poem that I want to read. It's from, I keep kind of going back and forth between these two of my favorite poetry books. So Inward by Young Pueblo again. Healing yourself will ask more of you, more rest, more self-love, more letting go, more time for learning, more space for transformation, more honesty about how you feel, more time developing good habits, more courage to try new practices, more faith in yourself in the process, more time cultivating your inner peace. And I think those are things that we are all really bad at naturally giving ourselves. So a lot of what I think the therapy is, it's allowing a space for that. And what psychedelics do is allowing even more space for that.
yeah, it's like healing requires to stop self-harming is what I gathered from that.
Yeah, healing requires, yeah. We can be so vicious to ourselves.
Yeah. So it's like just let it heal. Like, quit picking the scabs.
Right. Right. Okay, I've got one more, and then we've gotten advice. This is from Let Us Dance. It's called Blooming is Contagious. Blooming is contagious. The whole hillside gets infected come the colorful pandemic of springtime. It goes around quick. Some ringleaders, some get this wild idea to risk everything. It's known for the sake of unseen color that the wild tenderness might emerge. And the ecstatic message of the flower's openness says to the not yet opened buds, it is in you too. Oh, cozy up to people like this who make you think there might be something exquisitely wonderful inside of me that's susceptible to sunshine. And damn it, I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure out what.
Okay, I have something that I want to read then that I feel like fits really well. This is from The Pivot Year by Brianna Wiest. I got to find it real quick. It says, Day 6. You cannot desire what you do not already contain. Desire is a projection outward that is proportionate to potential inward. There are so many possibilities within this world, so many things to hope for and aspire to. There are so very many things one could want, and yet it is a very specific vision that awakens you on the inside. There are very few things that excite you in a way that makes you nearly uncomfortable with your wanting of them. Desire is so integral to who you are. It is part of you, even if you are not conscious of it. Even when your ego chooses to shield you from your awareness of it, what you are waiting on is in your own willingness to accept the mountain you must climb in order to pull those desires out of the deepest parts of you and create them in the world that you already inhabit.
You read that so fast.
Sorry. Yeah, but I feel like that's of the same vein where it's like you have everything that you dream of and desire exists in you already. All you have to do is like create it. Speak it to life. And so the idea of blooming and how it's contagious. And when somebody is like truly pursuing their best life, those that are around them, and I love to use the word pandemic and infected and stuff. Yeah, because that is like a specific type of joy where it's like that thing planted inside of you is coming to life and blooming.
Yeah, for all to see. I think that we all have a special gift to give the world, and we need to navigate that. And for some, it's bringing joy and laughter. For others, it's healing. For others, it's, how can how movement can improve their life. Yeah. But it really boils down to like, what can we do to improve this world? And for the people who like have other goals outside of that, I kind of think that there should be some questions around that, to be quite honest. Like, we can't take our accomplishments and our successes to the grave with us. Yeah. So the thing that's like, some good questions to ask yourself, I actually love asking this questions like, if you were given 6 months to live, what would you spend your time doing? Or if you were on your deathbed, how would you want people to know you? What do you want to be known by? I don't think it's going to be like selling this many houses.
Yeah, no. That's a good question. I don't know.
You don't have to have the answer here right now, but I think it's a good question for people to sit with. Like, if you had 6 months to live, what would you be spending it doing? That answer for me would be like, I'd be with my family and I'd take way more time for friends, and I'd invite way more play and fun and adventure into my life. I'd want experiences. Yeah.
See, me, there's a whole bunch of like things that are unresolved in my life where I would feel like I would need to like just desperately work to resolve as many as them as possible. But then I feel like that's a lot of anxiety to finish out my life. So yeah, that's a heavy question for me.
Yeah, these are actually a couple of the questions and tools that Jonathan Robinson, our guest coming on, uses within MDMA therapy. But they're also tools that I've been using and I've thought about myself when I've contemplated, my own purpose for my life. In fact, for a long time, I would think about like, when I'm 80 and wrinkled and, have lived a long life, what are the stories that I want to tell my grandkids about? That's one that has been fun for me. Like, that's really about the experiences in your life. They're not going to care about the boring stuff.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I hope that some of those tidbits that we've sprinkled in, those like thought-provoking pieces today have stuck. And now we can roll into the last segment of the day. It's been a while since we had an advice roll in.
Yeah, I'm
So
excited.
here we go. We've got some advice. Dear Kaylani and James, I've been a longtime listener of your show and have found your insights really helpful. Today I'm reaching out because I'm facing a challenge and could use some advice. For the past few months, I've been feeling very overwhelmed and have had a sense of burnout at work. The constant demand, long hours, and pressure to meet deadlines have taken a toll on my mental and physical well-being. I found myself struggling with fatigue on a daily basis, and even the simplest decisions seem like a monumental task. Anxiety has become a constant companion, and I'm concerned about the impact this is having on my overall health. To make matters more complicated, I'm also dealing with significant financial stressors. The pressure to meet financial obligations has added an extra layer to the strain to an already challenging situation. I've noticed that my work absenteeism has increased, and I fear if I don't address these issues soon, it could have serious consequences for my career. I'm reaching out to you in the hope that you might have some advice or insights on how to navigate through this difficult time. Have you discussed strategies for overcoming burnout and fatigue on your show? Are there resources for people? I appreciate any guidance that you can offer. Thank you for your time and providing a platform where people like me can seek advice and support.
That's very nice. I always wonder where they're from, but that doesn't matter. Anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah. Burnout. See, it's funny because that's like, I don't want to minimize the person's feelings but for me, my industry, there's very little work right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting here thinking like, I would love to feel burned out, because that means that I'm probably producing a lot of money. But then he or she said that they are also having financial stressors, and so that doesn't mean that they're experiencing a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, different industries. I think a lot of people work hourly jobs, and that doesn't always mean that they're getting that your work equals super fat paychecks, or that you get those surprise bonuses like you kind of can feel when you work in real estate.
Yeah.
I've really noticed an increase in burnout with clients that I've been working with, and especially so honestly in the last couple of months, because I think that maybe seasonal affective disorder is taking a toll as well. And work absenteeism due to mental health is a really big thing. It's something that honestly some companies are taking on and trying to provide more services for their employees, realizing that if they don't have happy and productive employees, that affects a lot of how like conflict arises, or the just kind of teamwork of how I had already mentioned productivity, but there's more turnover all around. It's not good for the system.
Yeah.
And so it does have me wondering, I'd love if this person could check and look into whether or not their company has some kind of employee assistance plan, or if they're able to engage with counseling, whether that's telehealth, which sometimes can mean that you are able to get sessions that are maybe in the evening after you're done working, or you might be able to work within your lunch break or things like that. I've also had clients who've asked for documentation that can allow them some more flexibility at work to attend mental health appointments, because mental health is part of physical health. And if we're not taking care of our mental health, we're probably noticing some physical symptoms if things are piling up, like this person is saying, like they're experiencing fatigue. Yeah, your body can't just do and work like that. It will eventually give you some signs that it's too much.
Yeah.
That she's saying anxiety has been a constant companion and the impact on her overall health. And I've been someone who's been a workaholic and has ignored those signs in the past. I'm doing way better now. Had an upgrade and I'm doing way better, but it has a total physical toll. I think that oftentimes when there's a financial stress, that thought of just how much can I keep working, I need to keep working, can feel like you're a horse with blinders on, just seeing that one direction. But your health is really a hugely valuable thing at your disposal that you don't want to invalidate and ignore.
Yeah.
So I think even if it might feel vulnerable or exposing, looking into what it might take to really advocate for yourself, getting into some therapy, or even for some people taking some time off to address their mental health. These are things that I think can sound like extreme, but it's so necessary. And if that's the way that you are feeling when you hear that, like, oh, taking time off work, I just invite you to really start viewing your mental health as something that's valuable, and that the system that this person is describing of feeling that unwell and also feeling like they need to force themselves to go to work, that's not a system that magically improves on its own.
Yeah.
So I think that it's at a point that they might need some more one-on-one guidance. Maybe this isn't the right job for them too. Like, toxic workplaces can really play a role, obviously, clearly, in employee satisfaction. But sometimes, again, like, we can get blinders on and view like, well, this is what I went to school for. This is, the best thing I can find right now, without having like maybe looked for other options. Like, sometimes being just curious, like giving yourself permission to be curious for what else is out there, it doesn't mean that you're taking the next step or taking an action step, just to understand what might be available and what might be improved.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said.
Thanks, man. Makes it easy. Oh, man. I know that this person is not alone, and I'm really feeling for them. I think my last piece of advice for them is, in small ways within your own time, try to find even just a 10-minute ritual that alleviates some of that. Whether that is, like, for me, it's like reading. For others, maybe that means having some meditative time. Maybe that means, taking a nice walk outside. Whatever it is, put some intention towards, like, what's a little aspect of self-care that I can give myself.
Yeah, gratitudes.
Yes, love the gratitudes. Okay, just one last reminder for people. I have a retreat scheduled and planned with Dr. Sabrina Hadid. It is going to be happening March 7th through the 10th. There will be some more information within the link tree that we'll be posting, and we would love to have you join us. It is a medicine retreat, so we will be using ketamine as part of a method to really improve well-being overall, and this is for anyone who's curious about how they can improve their mental health and might need some time just in this beautiful environment over in Clay Ellum to just get a break from everyday life and to really focus on themselves and heal. So I'm so excited for that opportunity to work with any of the amazing humans who want to participate. Please learn more. Send us an email, ask questions if there's anything that you want to learn. And enjoy your holiday season. After our interview, and we'll be taking a short break from posting for a couple of weeks, but we will be happy to share with you some highlights from the last year. We are celebrating a full year of recording, because we started recording in December of last year, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm excited to reflect.
Yes, it's going to be fun. So we'll give you some of our kind of behind the scenes takes and thoughts. And it's just a lovely way to wrap up a wonderful year of podcasting with you, James.
Yeah, same.
Thank you for joining us. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share with a friend, write in some advice to us if there's something that's on your mind. And remember to be curious and just a glorious human that you are. You're doing it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.